Buddy Andy here again. Well, this particular weekend is the weekend. I'm recording this on the 4th of October, and this time last year I was over in America. I think this particular day I was probably, where was I? I don't know, probably in Nashville, I should think. But one of those things, thinking about these sort of friendships and everything that we make here, and I had a great time last year down in Nashville at South Tube, and that particular event is going on again this particular weekend down in Chattanooga in Tennessee as well, and I'd love to be there. But one of the things I was thinking of is when you're there, and for the first time, and I was the only British person there, and surrounded by all these other Americans from all over the place, and obviously a great deal of them I'd never met before in my life. Well, I'd never met them, and I didn't even know who they were, because yes, some of the people I knew, obviously, and they knew me, which was even more surprising. But it made me think that seeing how the people reacted to each other, and it was obvious the people that have met each other before, they automatically they knew each other, etc., and then they went off in their little groups, I suppose, and they reinforced those friendships that they'd already had. And I remember speaking about that at the time, a way that when we meet on here, and when we do actually meet in real life, it creates those real friendships which you then take outside of the online community, if you see what I mean. You're still interacting here on the various means that we've got, but you take it outside and it forms another bond, and it takes it to a different level, if you want to take it that way, and it certainly takes it to a different level with some people, with the relationships and marriages and that sort of thing that have come out of this social networking. But I was thinking this weekend that I would love to be there this weekend with the group of people that I was with there with last year, and the people who are there this week as well, nothing against them as well, because I feel that I know them that little bit better, that would make it so much easier. Because you know what it's like when you first meet people, and especially when there's a lot of people around as well, you can't really have those conversations. Something that I wanted to do, I suppose, last year, is to actually sit down or stand at the bar or whatever it was and talk to people and have a proper conversation, rather than just having those sort of general little snippets and those little back and forths and about the YouTube thing, and you introduced each other and you talk about your videos, etc., and those things that you have in common, which is all very good. But from my point of view, being over here, 3,000 whatever odd miles it is away from all the activity that's happening there, not saying you feel left out, but you feel that you can't quite take it to that other particular level, because you get that short time and you haven't got the time, because there's all the other people that you want to meet, or there's all these other things going on, there's parties going on, there's karaoke's going on, and all this type of thing. You can't really take it that bit further, which was what was so good for me about spending the time with Gary and Mike, and in Chicago, driving down and then going back again. We actually got to know each other pretty well. I know Gary and Mike knew each other anyway through this, but I got to know them. But what's happened since then? Because I actually watched a video yesterday about No Time to Think as a relation. I watched a video by Bill CTV, I think it is, Billy Biggin, as it used to be known over there in America. A great video all about thinking. And I went back to a video that I made some time ago called No Time to Think. It reminded me of that. I thought I'll have a look and see if I can play. You can see the sun coming through. Yeah, autumnal sunshine. Teddy's enjoying it. And it made me go back to that video, but one of the things in that video was talking about Twitter, and I was saying, I think I said more than once on that particular video, that you won't catch me going on there. I'm not interested in this 140 character stuff, what can be summed up in 140 characters, that, you know, it needs to be a bit bigger than that. Exactly what I'm talking about here, expanding that conversation, having more time, etc. But you know, there you go. You have to admit you make mistakes. You called it wrong, Andy. You certainly called it wrong that time. And what I've found through things like Twitter and also on Facebook and the friends that I've got there, because what happened when I got back from South Tube was that I got about another 50 odd, or around about 50 people subscribed to me who I've met. Some of them I couldn't even remember meeting them, or couldn't even remember who they were. You know, that's the way, exactly what I'm talking about. It's that sort of minute sort of thing, you know, you're darting around all over the place and bumping into these people and meeting them, and you can't remember everybody. I wrote some people's names down and that, but maybe I should have got everybody to write all their names. I thought, oh yeah, that's you. You're the guy from Dallas, or you're the person from New York that I was talking to, you know. And some people say, oh, it's great to meet you, Andy. And I'm thinking, did I meet you? I must have done because they remembered me, which is great. But taking it that bit different, and with the Facebook thing as well, I started up a Facebook page, something else that I actually resisted for a while. And what I tend to do on Facebook, I tend not to ask people to become friends of mine. Yes, I have done it in the past when I first started off with those sort of handful or whatever of people that I knew would automatically, yeah, go, okay, Andy, yeah. But I've been surprised by the people that have added me as a friend, and I find that very complimentary as well. But when you're on there, or you're on Twitter, and you're sharing these pieces of information, it then goes on, you have these sort of private conversations with people, either via Facebook or by Twitter on the direct messages. You might interact with people via emails, and I even started doing a bit of instant messaging as well now with people, and that's another way, and you get to know people before you meet them. And I think although you do that to an extent here via the videos, it's a bit of a one-way conversation, isn't it? I make this video, even if you leave me a comment or you make a response, it's not that instantaneous thing. It's great, it's very, very worthwhile, and that's how we all met each other in the first place, and how I think about certain people. Oh, I'd love to meet them because I'd love to talk to them about this. But even that happens, I've found that with the comment section. I've had a couple of comment conversations with people recently. They've inspired me to make particular videos, but through that back and forth, I've got to know people a little better, and they've got to know a bit more about me, I suppose, and common interests and things like that. That's why it would be great to meet some of these people. Now, I feel now that if I went there, had this year, if you can see what I mean, if I went back in time with everything that I've got now, wouldn't that be great? That experience would be better. I hope that makes some sort of sense. Maybe you haven't been in that situation. And there's people on here that I'm thinking about sort of getting in touch and saying, look, I'd like to get together and have a meet up, because you feel that although you've got this in common, and although you've got the social networking in common, you've actually learnt something about them. You've actually learnt something about that person through your private conversations, or via your videos, etc., that you've responded to each other, etc. That's why I knew that I would get on with somebody like Gary last year so well, because we'd had those sort of emails, or we'd had the video responses, the back and forths in the comments and that type of thing. You can't do that with everybody, but you can do it to a small effect. One thing I've never actually tried is Skype. Although I'm on there, I've never actually used it, which is a bit silly really, because that's exactly the sort of thing that you can help, can take this a little bit forward. So anyway, I just thought I'd put that out there really, and I'd love to know what other people's experiences are. If you've been to some of these big gatherings, and I know there was a very big one in Toronto last year, which people still refer to, and that's another thing, is that people still hark back to those old gatherings that they went to. Toronto, the 888 keeps coming up, and having seen and known people who went there and know what their experiences were, that sounds to have been a very good one. It's one I'd love to have been at, because there's so many people there that I interact with here and would love to meet at some time. Probably won't get that opportunity. But even people talking about South Tube made them remind them of the first South Tube, and obviously talking about last year's, and there's all this reminiscing. That's good. It proves that we're bringing ourselves together. And I said, when you meet here, you then take it to that other level. But from my point of view, over this side of the Atlantic, so many of my friends are in America, my internet friends, and obviously I don't get that chance. So the Facebook, the Twitter, the IMs and all those sort of things, maybe even Skype or something like that, can help to take those friendships to something a bit better than I can do physically, if you see what I mean. I hope that makes some sense. But I'd love to know other people's experiences of this, whatever country you're in, whether you sort of feel those slight frustrations as well, because you feel that you've got so much in common with the people here. I did a video recently about passion, and about how it's hard to explain what your passions are, and it's hard if you haven't got someone else to bounce off of, and that's what we have here, someone else you can understand exactly what you're talking about. Yes, your friends and relatives and partners, etc., can understand it to an extent, but they don't understand it completely because they're not involved in it. That's only natural. That's not a criticism against them. We all have that type of thing, but here on the internet, the social web, whatever you want to call it, we know exactly what we're talking about. We see the possibility. We know what those friendships mean and what we get out of them, and only us understand. So that's why it's good occasionally to have that physical thing as well, and actually interact on a one-to-one basis with a bit of time to do it. So maybe this is pie in the sky thinking and dreaming and all that sort of stuff, but there you go. Wouldn't it great to have all your people move into one place, have of a YouTube town or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, not Yeovil or something like that, but something like that. We can all get together and live in the same town. That's never going to happen anyway. Going mad here. Anyway, thanks for your time. I shall speak to you again soon. Goodbye.